Good Thursday morning, everyone. Doug Farrar, NFL editor of the Touchdown Wire site on the USA Today Sports Media Group Network, along with Mark Schofield, our 5'2" guy who has his usual Ted Lasso mustache-less costume on. Mark, how's it going?
I'm doing fantastic, Doug. Pleasure to be with you this fine morning.
Are you being a goldfish? Do you have that 10-second memory?
Yes, I am exactly being a goldfish. That is what I'm doing today. That is exactly what I'm doing today.
Right on. Mark is joining us with a cold, so he's playing through it, man.
We're playing through it. This is that time of the year. Nobody's 100%. So you fight through it, and we are heavily laden with Mucinex Fast Max, which I found to be a wonderful product. Which has got me through the past couple of days.
Well, you did that. I asked you to do a piece on the best fits for Odell, and you did that piece in like 5 minutes. So,
like I told you, I was fueled by cold medicine.
I guess so. You're on the tussin and it's working.
Yeah. They're spraying some Windex on it.
Yeah. Bring some dirt. So I was going to go into the all underrated team. I did this week on offense and defense. You had a couple guys. I did want to touch on one small note. These are my notes for Panthers at Cardinals. Not that it would do them any good against the Arizona defense. It eats quarterbacks for lunch, but if you're Matt Rule and Sam Darnold's out 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury, he was playing horribly when he was healthy. Your first option is XFL legend PJ Walker. Option B is apparently Matt Barkley. Why wouldn't you give Cam Newton a call? Because this team is wasting an outstanding defense on an offense that does nothing, which is pretty bizarre for a Matt Rule coach team. I wrote that yesterday. Thursday morning, Jonathan Alexander of the Charlotte Observer was the first to report, confirmed by Joe Person at The Athletic, and now Adam Schefter. Subsequently, it'll be confirmed by everyone else because they'll read Schefter's tweet and confirm it. But Jonathan Alexander and Joe Person are locally sourced, so we can go with this. 3 sources told Alexander the Panthers are going to meet with Cam Newton today. I assume Cam is vaxxed. I wouldn't think he would play against an Arizona defense that no matter who the quarterback is, you're not going to have a very good time. They're the best defense overall per DVOA in the last month. But you know who they play next week?
No.
The Washington football team.
Oh, well, there you go.
Head coach, Ron Rivera.
Yeah, that's
at Carolina, by the way, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's some fantastic time. And yeah, I mean, I can't imagine we're here Thursday morning. I can't imagine you could get Cam in and up to speed, ready to go for Sunday. Like, I just don't think you can do that. But I certainly think you could do it for next week. And I do think, like you said, Cam, the report that I read weeks ago said that Cam was vaccinated now. So I think that probably play a role in the decision to sign him. And look, Darnold was bad. Darnold's been bad the past couple of weeks. You need something. I mean, I know some people wondered, why don't you just play PJ Walker? Well, I mean, you got an opportunity to sign a guy that was a starting NFL quarterback last year. Why not take that chance?
Well, his last couple of years in Carolina, when he was healthy, he was great. New England, I don't think that ever really worked. We've discussed that.
Right. It didn't work.
They want the quarterback obviously everyone wants the quarterback they had.
Yeah.
In Mac Jones, they have the quarterback they want.
Right.
Distribute, don't do anything crazy. Let's cut the deep ball way out. Cam is an improviser. He's a torque thrower. He's a downfield guy. And with the Panthers, I mean, why not? Because as I said, great defense, top 5 defense. Their offense is garbage. So
yeah,
they're throwing everything against the wall just to see if it sticks. What did you see from Cam? I mean, take the system out of it and the fit. What did you see from Cam and what you know about a Matt Rule offense and a Joe Brady offense? How does this work? Because he didn't work with these guys when he was in Carolina.
No, I mean, I think you look at sort of what Joe Brady does conceptually and structurally. You're going to have some vertical reads, some quick reads. You're going to have a lot of half field concepts where man zone reads is really what he's going to be asked to do. I think with Robbie Anderson, there'll be an opportunity to push the ball downfield a little bit. Anderson and Darnold just could never seem to get on the same page. I think the other thing to sort of keep in mind is he's played with Christian McCaffrey. So there's some feel there between those two that maybe Darnold and McCaffrey never sort of developed. When you start thinking about
just screaming at Sam Darnold on the sideline, that's never a good sign.
Yeah, it's never a good sign. When you start thinking about option routes from the running back out of the backfield, sometimes you need time to develop that relationship so you guys read it the same way. Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey already have done that. I mean, there's a clip that's floated down the timeline, and I remember writing about when it happened, that play against the Packers where Clay Matthews is calling out the wheel route, and Cam's like, "Oh, you've been watching film, right? Well, watch this," and it's the angle route. So McCaffrey and Cam will be on the same page as far as that goes.
And he has the legendary Tommy Trumbull. He has
right.
Hubbard. There's Terrace Marshall Jr. is, I know Sam Darnold has been pressured. His 130 dropbacks under pressure, which leads the NFL. I know Carolina's offensive line isn't great. I would say, from my viewing of Carolina's offense this year, I would say maybe 30% of those pressure dropbacks are on Darnold. And the rest of it is just on an offensive line. They didn't plan this well.
No, they didn't.
Then you have the Cam under pressure thing and what if Cam gets hurt thing. But what are you going to do? I mean, it's like Bills. You have a crap offensive line and your offense is subsequently broken. This is, you're just throwing stuff and hoping it works.
Yeah, I mean, we're into November now, and you had a playoff opportunity that's slowly slipping away. You got to figure something out in a hurry. Donald's got a fracture in his shoulder. Like, you need a quarterback anyway, so here you go.
They started out 3-0. They're 4-5.
Yeah,
I wrote an article about their defense. I think it was after they beat the Saints. Or I can't imagine I wrote an article after they beat the Texans, because who cares? But Phil Snow at 65 is revolutionizing defense by bringing college concepts in. They're still playing well on defense. I mean, they allowed 28 points to the Vikings. They allowed 28 points to the Cowboys. Eagles hung 18 on them. Giants 3. I'm looking at the wrong column. Actually, their defense has not played well. Okay. Cowboys 36, Eagles 21, Vikings 34, Giants 25, Falcons 13, Patriots 24.
I mean, the Patriots won. One of those was a pick six, though.
Right.
And
and part of it, I think, is the offense, the bad offense bleeding into the defense, which you got
that's not just a Carolina problem. There are other teams now are in that boat too.
Hello, Buffalo. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I wanted to get into quickly my all underrated team for the first half of the season that I put up this week. Matt Ryan, quarterback, Atlanta Falcons. Talk about that because you wrote a great piece on him this week in that offense. Elijah Mitchell, running back, San Francisco 49ers. He's been great. Javonte Williams, free Javonte. Javonte Williams and Nick Chubb are tied for the most missed tackles forced this season with 35. Javonte has done it in 95 carries. Chubb has done it in 120. Basically, outside of Derrick Henry, who's out for the rest of at least the regular season, this is the best power back in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Tim Patrick, one of several underrated Denver offensive players, gave Trevon Diggs a stutter go, which is kind of a problem for Trevon Diggs. Deebo Samuel, I mean, I said it before. This guy is putting up Jerry Rice numbers with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance as his quarterbacks.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Through 9 games, he has more receiving yards than any receiver in 49ers history. That's kind of scary. CJ Houshmandzud, tight end Bengals. Good for him. He's a great player. Rashawn Slater, I mean, I don't know if he's underrated. I just don't think enough people are talking about him because he could be the offensive rookie of the year right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that. He's offensive rookie of the year if you're not looking at a skill position player, right?
Brian O'Neill, right tackle, Minnesota Vikings. We don't talk about him at all, but he's really good. Quentin Spain, offensive guard, Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals signed him last year after the Bills cut him really early to a 3-year, $15 million contract where the bill that really saved the Bills $1.25 million and cost them $3.5 million in dead cap. The Bills could really use Spain right now because he's just whooping ass in Cincinnati's offense. Laken Tomlinson, offensive guard, 49ers. You don't want any part of that left side with him and Trent Williams.
No.
Rodney Hudson, he was out for a few weeks with an injury, but when he's in, and we'll get into this later, one of the most prolific run games in the NFL, prolific and productive, belongs to the Arizona Cardinals. Who would have thunk it? Out of spread formations.
Right. Spread to run.
And the thing about Hudson is, and Cliff Kingsbury said this, Kyler Murray said this, all of a sudden Kyler can take deeper pass sets because the center problem is not a problem anymore. And they got Hudson for cheap, or, really, really low ball trade. And I remember saying, okay, Seahawks, and they didn't do it because they're, whatever. So that's my offense. My defense is pretty much, as our fearless leader, Neo Coulong said, it's pretty much Javon Hargrave and a bunch of Titans, which is kind of,
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the Titans defense in a minute because who boy. Jeffrey Simmons, defensive, I called him an interior defensive lineman because he's kind of everywhere, but what he did to Matthew Stafford was 3 sacks. It was like he was Aaron Donald and Cam Hayward Frankenstein together. Javon Hargrave, who's played very well despite the fact that nobody seems to like what Jonathan Gannon is doing. Daniko Autry, they got him for 3 years, $21.5 million with $9 million guaranteed. That's the signing of the year because Daniko Autry, let me see, his 42 total pressures ties him for 5th in the league with Rashawn Gary, who's another underrated guy. Cincinnati's Trey Hendrickson, another underrated guy. Autry makes a cut here, I wrote, because his overall effect on the Titans defense that has learned to get consistent pressure with 4 is so transformational. And going ahead of the Titans Saints matchup, Autry is the guy who ties the outside and the inside together. He's kind of their Michael Bennett. He's that rare player where you can put him everywhere, you can stun him. And he had a sack against Stafford, a sack of Stafford in the Rams game. The very next play, Simmons had a sack, but Daniko Autry overshot Stafford. He would have had sacks 2 plays in a row. So he's great. Harold Landry, edge, Tennessee Titans. A guy we've kind of waiting for him to take the leap, and he has.
Yep.
Matt Judon, edge, New England Patriots. If Daniko Autry isn't the best edge right
signing
this season, it's because Judon is that guy from the start has been just absolutely insane, and you can sort of that because you're a Patriots guy. Devondre Campbell, linebacker, Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers no longer have a middle linebacker problem for the first time since like Ray Nitschke. That's nice. Chidobe Awuzie, cornerback, Cincinnati Bengals. Note to Lute Amaruno, stop playing him off because that's where he's vulnerable. AJ Terrell, Atlanta Falcons. Good Lord, this guy. And I did want to bring up because AJ Terrell has no interceptions this year. Casey Hayward Jr., cornerback with the Raiders, who has also played excellently, really well this year, has no interceptions. We really need to stop using interceptions as any kind of arbiter of defensive back performance, as we tend to use interceptions as a negative for quarterbacks because there's so much that either goes into them or goes into not. Both Terrell and Hayward are shutdown guys. I'm sure if you ask any defensive coordinator, would you rather have a Marcus Peters who will get you, 8 interceptions and give up 8 touchdowns, or would you rather have a Terrell or a Hayward who gives up no touchdowns and has no interceptions? I think every defensive coordinator would tell you which guy they'd rather have.
Right.
My 4th Titan on the underrated defense, Kevin Byard, didn't have a lot of picks last year in a defense with no real defined coordinator. This year, that's really turned around. Jordan Poyer, safety, Buffalo Bills. Bills are the best defense in the NFL. They play the best man. Poyer this year has been targeted 11 times he's led 5 catches for 39 yards, 17 yards after the catch, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and an pass rating of 15.2. I had to make sure that wasn't a typo. He reminds me of, you remember Devin McCourty with the 2019 Patriots, and they played a bunch of bad quarterbacks early, and it's just a crap ton of man, and McCourty had more interceptions than targets. Well, Poyer's allowed 5 catches, he has 3 interceptions. Do not throw it to that guy.
No, you don't want to do that.
Another guy in your wheelhouse, Adrian Phillips, safety with the Patriots. Not really just a safety, because he'll play box, he'll play slot.
Yeah.
He'll play some free. He'll play some outside corner. He's like the ideal. And it's interesting because Phillips has been deployed all over the place as kind of that quote unquote ideal Belichick multi-position guy. With the Ravens, Judon was Mr. Blitz from everywhere. and they've kept him pretty much on the edge. He's
Yeah,
got
they have.
snaps anywhere else. They just say, put on your red sleeves and your number 9 and go get him.
Yeah, we all sort of thought that Kyle Duggar was going to be the Patrick Chung replacement, but it's really ended up being Phillips. They used Chung inside, outside in the box, deep safety as a linebacker at times, and that's been Phillips this year, and that's been impressive to watch.
Who are your underrated guys?
Yeah, I mean, I just jotted down a couple.
I know there's a Patriots linebacker who's going to make it and deserve it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll start with two guys on the defensive side of the ball for New England, Christian Barmore up front, who I think, when you start thinking about rookies that have played extremely well, I think Barmore is in that group. Whenever you get Bill Belichick to sing effusive praise about a rookie, that's rare. Barmore has been a big part of what they've been able to do up front, because we can talk about it more when we get to New England, Cleveland, but New England has become a zone coverage team in the past couple of weeks. And that's a bit of a transformation for them, because they are traditionally a cover one man free defense. That's where Bill Belichick wants to live, but they've been a lot more 2 and 3 the past couple of weeks.
Well, they played a lot of zone last year. The difference this year is they're playing it well.
Yeah, I mean, but they only had 8 snaps in cover one against Sam Darnold last week. I mean, that's a very low number for them. And it starts with guys like Judon and Barmore up front getting pressure so they can play zone behind it. But yeah, Juwan Bentley. I think Juwan Bentley has been a quietly underrated player for the Patriots with what he's able to do against the run, what he's able to do to pressure the quarterback, I think has been impressive. Max Crosby. I've been studying the Raiders defensive front. Max Crosby, I did a piece for Big Blue View about the Giants
in the NFL, by the way.
Yeah, I did a piece for Big Blue View about the Giants offense, but I had to stop and put that aside because I was watching that Raiders defense against the Giants, and I just went down a Max Crosby rabbit hole on Wednesday night, and that's where I spent most of my time, because he's just been
some guys on defense. They really do.
They do, and his first step off the line is so explosive, particularly when he's allowed to slant to the inside, where so many times they're trying to either block down on him or pull to him. The Giants were, and you couldn't get there. He's so explosive. Offensively, Dawson Knox.
One other Raider who almost made my list was Denzel Perryman.
Really
nice, just gap demolisher in the right. He's a little vulnerable in coverage, so I kind of I don't know if that's more a player. I don't know if he's underrated. You just want to point out what he does well.
Right.
Watching him against the Eagles, and I mean, they could not block him.
They couldn't.
He was flipping gaps like a running back. He was very impressive.
Flipping the offense.
To go back to Barmore real quick, I compared him to Corey Liuget. I thought he had Fletcher Cox possibilities.
Right.
And they've played him all over the front, which is cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. Flipping the offense, Cordero Patterson with the Atlanta Falcons. The matchup kind of nightmare type of player. I think it's, that fits today's sort of modern NFL offense to have that kind of guy. You could use him in the backfield. You could use him as a runner. You can split him out to the outside. I think it's pretty impressive. Dawson Knox, the Bills tight end. We all thought that they were going to be a heavy 10 personnel team because of the way they ran their offense last year, but they've carved out a role for him. And anytime an offense does that, I take note, which is why Christian Kirk for Arizona, because they've carved out a role for him as well. Particularly, look, you had Hopkins out last week. They kind of ran that pass game through him. They were doing some design screen stuff for him. That sting concept, he ran a great route against the safety for a huge gain from on a pass from Colt McCoy. So that stood out to me as well. So those are some of the guys that I've kind of thought have been flying under the radar.
It's funny how the Falcons lost Julio Jones and they sort of recreated Julio in both Patterson and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, that's exactly what they've done.
And the difference with Patterson is he becomes that sort of Swiss Army knife guy where he's in the backfield, he's in the slot, he's aligned to the formation, he's your ISO. And he might motion in, and he's a total Arthur Smith guy because Smith is. I mean, you could see him as not that he would be classified as a tight end in 12 or 13 personnel, but they sort of use him that way at certain times. Or even if they're not in 12, it kind of looks like that, and he'll run the ball from anywhere. He'll motion in and bango, and it's like Taysom Hill but good.
Right, that's exactly right.
So very cool. We'll get to your Atlanta piece in a second on their offense. Ravens and Dolphins. Thursday night. Buys, by the way. Bears, Bengals, Giants, Texans. The Bears are going to bye this week, so that gives Matt Nagy an extra week to screw up their offense. You did do a 3 throws on Justin Fields after the Steelers game, which was preposterous for all sorts of reasons.
Yep.
I want to get your read on his performance because I love that they waited until halfway through the second quarter to give him a design rollout, and that was immediately a 25-yard pass to Cole Kmet across his body. And the motion outside on the boot displaced the entire Steelers defense. Hi, go figure. And then it was the deep passes right into little tiny buckets in the second half. It's give this guy a good offensive coordinator. I think we're seeing a very, very different picture in Chicago. But you did a 3 throws. I wanted to know what you thought.
I was very impressed with him. I mean, average depth of target was something like 15.7 yards, which led the entire NFL last week. This is where he needs to be a more vertical.
The longest 8 all season.
I don't know if it is all season in terms of a weekly basis, but it's got to be up there. I mean, number 2 was Jalen Hurts at 13. I mean, that's a huge gap. It was almost 3 whole yards because, Fields was 15.7, Hurts was 13.1. I was on a Bears show on Wednesday night and they were asking me about potential head coaching opportunities for them next season. You could see a scenario, I think, where Chicago goes defensive guy. We see that flip from time to time. You bring in the offensive guy, it doesn't quite work. Then, maybe a Vance Joseph, maybe a Todd Bowles, maybe some of these other defensive guys, might get an interview there. So you might just be talking about, okay, well, who would be your offensive coordinator? And I'm going to make the case right now. I was banging this drum last offseason, Pep Hamilton. You watch Justin Herbert last year. What did they do with him?
Yes.
Downfield stuff, vertical stuff. And obviously, look, you had Anthony Lynn, you had Shane Steichen, you had Pep Hamilton. Steichen's now obviously in Philly, Anthony Lynn.
Pep kind of the guy who was tied to Herbert in the developmental stuff, though.
Yeah. And that's why I think, look, you're looking at a guy that, he's the passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the Houston Texans. I'd interview him to be an offensive coordinator type guy for Justin Fields.
But it was with Wentz in Philadelphia early on when he was good.
He had the 3.
But DiFilippo was the guy who was sort of tied to Wentz, like Velcro too. And I think Pep was that guy.
Pep was that guy for Herbert. And you see what they were able to do with Herbert last year, the downfield vertical passing game, which I think is where you want to be with Fields. And I think if you look at Fields now, you look at Herbert last year, you see some overlap. You're also seeing this year with Lombardi, they're kind of right in that Chargers offense towards the line of scrimmage, and you're seeing
reductive, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if they go the defensive coordinator head coach route in Chicago, bring Pep in to be your offensive coordinator. I think that's an ideal pairing.
Percentages tell you that when you hire a defensive head coach, Buddy Ryan, his 1993 Oilers playbook, he said quarterbacks are spoiled, pampered babies, need to be put on their asses every possible way. You think that guy's going to hire a great offensive coordinator? Probably not.
Probably not.
You would want to see something like what Sean McDermott did, which is I'm a defensive head coach, but I want to hire a guy with, a clue, as opposed to, the Pete Carroll approach, which is you get a bunch of guys who could be pretty good, you just neuter them and run the same thing all over the place. But yeah, I would I think Fields showed a ton of potential. And the Bears never fire a coach mid-season, and I just hope Fields survives it and goes on to better things. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
Thursday Night Football, Ravens, Dolphins. I don't really have much to say about the Dolphins at this point. Tua plays, he doesn't play. I don't think it matters. The defense is falling off a cliff, and they might be looking for a new quarterback in 2022 with a very different coaching staff in front of it. With 2-7, when you were supposed to make a ton of noise as a playoff team, we'll do that.
Yep.
As for the Ravens, we know Lamar is great, playing better than ever as a pure thrower, especially in the pocket, also out. My concern for this team, because we talked about Lamar, we can talk about it again, but they're 6-2 is the pass defense. They blitz a lot as usual, but outside of Deshaun Elliott, I haven't seen consistent, well, that's being kind. I've seen some really bad coverage, some bad communication. This is not a Wink Martindale defense. And I wonder if Marcus Peters being out for the year is a part of that.
Yeah.
And again, you're playing the Dolphins, they'll probably win. probably because of your offense and your run game and all that. And you'll get to the Dolphins' offensive line is abysmal, so when you do blitz, you'll get home. And the Ravens are always a top 5 blitz team. But if you win this division, with the Steelers kind of and the Bengals not really looking great the last couple of weeks, then you go into the playoffs. And it's like, well, what if, because the thing with the Ravens has always been, well, how far can Lamar get them? I think Lamar can get them as far as they need to go. I just think
right.
defense is all of a sudden a problem.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just, you look at what they face down the stretch, the Packers and the Rams are probably the two best passing offenses they're going to face the rest of the way. They've got Pittsburgh twice. I don't consider them a dangerous passing game right now. You've got Cleveland. I don't really consider them a dangerous passing game right now. Like, yeah, maybe Cincinnati. Obviously, they lost to Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago.
Well, apparently,
but it's more the
field is Joe Montana since Odell left.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's more the playoffs. They're a team I think that it will still be dangerous because of what Lamar is doing. I mean, he's averaging like 357 yards per game on his own. That's more than some teams are. I mean, I think this is a season where Lamar can pull them.
Back in NFL history to have 40 passing attempts and 20 rushing attempts in the same game. He's done it twice now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's having an incredible season. He's the MVP, I think, in my mind. Could their defense let them down in the postseason? Maybe. I do think the Marcus Peters injury is sort of the trickle down effect in that secondary, because look, now you're asking, Humphrey to do a lot of different things, and he's a very good corner, but he can only do so much.
Well, I think Humphrey is best when he's the true guy and he just goes all over the place because he can play everywhere.
Yeah.
He's the one guy. Some guys just aren't. It's like he can do everything else at a all pro level. He can be a one guy decently, but
right.
So we'll see where that goes. Falcons at Cowboys. Dan Orlovsky on Tapeheads podcast with Scott Pioli. Add that to your feeds, kids. That's a great podcast. He made the point that after the Cowboys gave up that long touchdown to Denver's Tim Patrick over Trevon Diggs, the Cowboys went away from their preferred blitz man cover template and started playing more zone. Micah Parsons playing will linebacker and cover 2 and whatnot. Teams are starting to get the idea that throwing double moves at Diggs, as great as he is, shows a vulnerability. I will say anytime you have a big, lanky, rangy cornerback, Richard Sherman, Jalen Ramsey, whoever, guys with double moves and guys who can, run option routes in short areas, the Edelmans of the world, drive bigger cornerbacks nuts. That's not, right. It's not an indictment of Trevon Diggs in any way whatsoever. Unless you're Darrelle Revis in his, all-time years, or Deion Sanders in his all-time years, that's going to happen. So I did think the Cowboys, I don't want to say they played scared, but Denver beat their offense up. And the Cowboys really didn't have an answer for that kind of physicality on either side of the ball. And now that defense faces an offense that is really coming around. So Matt Ryan was my all underrated quarterback. You wrote a piece about that offense. So Dr. Schofield, I will give you the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I think with respect to the Denver-Dallas game for a second, they were physical, I think, most at the catch point. Kyle Fuller had a pass break up on the right sideline. Harrison had one on the left sideline. They were extremely physical, not just up front, but at the catch point. They were kind of beating those receivers up. They were raking
all day.
Yeah.
Most teams do not have the guts or the personnel or the scheme to do that. So it's not a blueprint. That's just what Denver can do.
As far as Atlanta, I mean, the main sort of takeaways for that offense, the two matchup pieces in Pitts and Patterson. I mean, you're forcing defenses to make decisions before the snap. How are you going to treat them? Are you going to treat them as a tight end and a running back? You treat them as a wide receiver and a wide receiver, a tight end and a running back, a tight end and a wide receiver. I mean, you're forcing defenses to make some determinations pre-snap that they can sort of then exploit post-snap. I mean, I sort of analogized it. There's a lot of people out there saying in today's NFL, you have to spread to run. Nate Tyson, others have been saying that you've got to sort of spread things out, create space pre-snap, and then run the football. I think they kind of do a twist on that. They sub to run. And what I mean by that is if teams are going to treat them as receiver and go sub packages, 4-2-5, 3-3-5, 3-2-6, which we saw some teams use against them, that's when you have to run the football. If you're Atlanta has a bad running game right now. yards per game. I know game script plays a lot in that, but I think they've only averaging like 3.9 yards per rushing attempt, which isn't great. It's the bottom 6, I think, of the league.
It's basically Patterson, go gadget, and nothing else.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get teams into sub packages against you, that's when I think Atlanta is going to have success running the football. And then, yeah, when you see Kyle Pitts flanked outside running by Xavier Howard, when you see Patterson flex to the boundary and he's going to get a linebacker like Quan Alexander, who's a good linebacker, but he's not a guy that's designed to cover a vertical route in space against a guy like Patterson. When you can create those mismatches as an offense, you're going to have success. And then the Ryan component is this. He's settled into that offense, I think, over the past couple of weeks. Like earlier this season, he was trying to sort of figure out things with Pitts, figure out things with Patterson. He's settled in now, made some plays on the move against New Orleans that I thought were pretty impressive. And so
there's like Kyle Shanahan made him do in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there's a recipe for this offense to be very good down the stretch, good enough to get into the playoffs and maybe steal a game. Yeah, I think so.
If I'm Dan Quinn, I'm playing the game.
Yeah.
I'm not putting Micah Parsons on Cordell Patterson. I'm not putting, one of my safeties on Kyle Pitts. I'm not. I could see Diggs following. If he can go off Patterson or Pitts or whatever, he might follow. I know that you have the one-on-ones to deal with that. So if I'm Quinn, okay, Trevon Diggs gets give this touchdown to Tim Patrick. I'm going to play cover 2. Have Micah Parsons play Will. Maybe that's a strategy they use this week. Maybe it doesn't work anyway.
Yeah.
At that point, you've got Dak against the Falcons defense, which is, advantage Dak. And I imagine we'll be seeing pissed off Dak after what the Broncos did. But that's a more compelling matchup than we might think. And I'm glad you wrote that piece on Atlanta's offense because it is definitely coming around.
Yeah, it is.
Saints and Titans. It is absolutely time to talk about the Titans defense. Writing a long tape piece on what's happened. Last season, with an undefined defensive coaching staff, they finished 29th in defensive DVOA. This season with Shane Bowen as the established defensive coordinator, and Jim Schwartz is kind of a front to coverage consultant. And I've talked to people who would know, who said that the Schwartz hire is kind of the guy behind the guys. That's made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And we can talk about Schwartz as a head coach. He's a brilliant defensive mind. He has been for a long time. He's a Belichick guy from Cleveland. They started out iffy this year. They've been just amazing over the last month. Through week 5, they still ranked 26th in defensive DVOA. Over the last 4 weeks, only the Cardinals, Rams, and Saints have a better defensive DVOA than Tennessee's minus 12.3. The Cardinals, by the way, have the best defensive DVOA over the last month by like crushing margin. But Titans, you start with the front because the personnel and the concepts, there's no better team rushing with 4 right now. Jeffrey Simmons, like when Bud Dupree is your 4th best guy.
Right.
And then the coverage and watching the overhead of the Rams-Titans game, everyone's talking about, the front. Well, on a lot of those pressures, Stafford was looking downfield and he didn't have anything open. And what I've seen from Titans as they've beaten some good teams too in the last month, some good offenses. It's a lot of cover 2 looks and quarters looks. And then they'll spin to dime man and cover 1. And you never really know they're very, very vanilla pre-snap. And then everything gets weird. And on a lot of those pressures, it was more about, honestly, Stafford's problems are more about coverage and pressure. They got a lot of pressures because of coverage. Kevin Byard is kind of the communicator there. Dan Orlovsky and Ryan Clark did a great video breakdown of the pick 6. I think Sean Payton has done an excellent job of scheming things up for Trevor Siemian, who, came back in the 4th quarter. Good for him. That was against the Falcons. A.J. Terrell notwithstanding, that's not really a challenge. This is not a great matchup at all for the potential coach of the year.
No, it's not. And I think, Tennessee with that front, they have the recipe, the teams are trying to recreate, which is the pressure with 4 and doing some interesting stuff behind it.
And then with Tannehill without Henry, they're going to have to lean on their defense because Tannehill, to me, he's like the best of the system guys.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
And of course, every quarterback is a system quarterback. That's going to be one of our T-shirts. Along with "Don't play man if you can't play man." But we know what we mean when we say system guy.
Right. Like, in that sort of tree of the like guys that need to be propped up by play action and scheme, Baker, Goff, Garoppolo, Tannehill. Like Tannehill's the best of that group.
Cousins also, yeah. Jaguars at Colts. The Colts have allowed the NFL's most passing touchdowns, 23, and they have the NFL's second most interceptions, 10, tied with the Patriots, Saints, and Bills, behind only Cowboys and the Rams. So you get one thing or you get another. That's it.
Yep.
0 to 100. Our own Lori Fitzpatrick did a great live stream of the Jaguars Bills game yesterday with Coach Vass, who we also love. And she went into Jacksonville's unique blitz packages. I know the interception that Carson Wentz just barfed up to, or Josh Allen barfed up to the other Josh Allen, was when I identified it as a Wentz throw. You know how bad it was. Sorry, Josh.
Right.
That was a Josh Allen blitz from the second level. And the Bills, bad offense, we'll get into the Bills offense in a minute. Bad offensive line. And they've had some real whiffs as far as that scouting. Quentin Spain to Cincinnati. Certain guy named Wyatt Teller, who's probably the best guard in football and just got paid.
Yeah.
Go Browns, as did Joel Batonio. Pay your guards, kids. So Carson Wentz under pressure this season, because the Jags brought a ton of pressure. They did it really well. They aligned their pressure with coverage better than you think they would, because they're the Jaguars and we don't talk about them as good, but they had a great plan and they executed it very well. Wentz under pressure this season, 49-94 for 6.5 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Those stats tell you one story, and I know you've seen, I would imagine you've seen this too. Wentz under pressure, I don't know what the dropped interception total is, but I would imagine it's somewhere around 10. He has had the most ridiculous luck with dropped picks or just missed picks when he's under pressure. He is, you can look at the stats and go, oh, he's horrible under pressure. He's like as bad as he was last year. So the Colts offensive line is much better than the Bills offensive line. But, right now the Colts, they're 4-5. I think they have a weird passing game. I think they have a weird pass defense. I think they have a fabulous run defense and a fabulous run game. So if it was 1973, they'd be in great shape.
Yeah, I mean, Wentz has been pretty bad under pressure. And, I think that's been sort of an issue with him dating back to North Dakota State. It's something that he also struggled with when he was at Philadelphia. And part of it is self-inflicted because Wentz is still that guy that doesn't know when to throw it away, doesn't know when to just give up on a down. Like he'll fight through 2 sack attempts and then say, I could still make a throw and get burned for it. Sometimes you get interceptions that are dropped as a result. And at this point in his career, it's not going away. Like it's not a situation where you could say, well, they'll coach that out of him. He's going to learn to throw it away. He's going to learn to take sacks.
No.
At this point, 6 or 7 years into his career, that's not happening. That's not happening. And so
unless you're Jameis or Sean Payton, and sadly that experiment ended too soon because Jameis got hurt. That was one example where it did happen, but usually it doesn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, he'll probably, against this, what they can do conceptually, this Jacksonville defense, he'll probably have a couple of interceptable throws under pressure on Sunday.
And, their Jags beat the Bills. They're feeling themselves. They're like, we have no F's to give. We're not going to go anywhere. So let's just go crazy and do all this weird stuff. And, it's interesting. You were talking about Wentz, and I was thinking about the quarterbacks we just talked about that need to be propped up with scheme. Guys like Wentz and Mayfield almost need to be tamped down with scheme. Like if you don't play them in a very specific structure, it's going to get really weird all over and over and over really fast. Hey, adhere yourself to exactly this. I could argue that Cousins is a guy who needs to be propped up and tamped down by scheme. Maybe Tannehill's that same way. But yeah, I think Wentz is a guy where if you don't say you are to color exactly inside the lines and don't even look at the blank page, you have to be right. Like you want to put blinders on him. And when that doesn't happen, we know what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Browns Patriots. The Browns win over the Bengals week 9 was weird. Baker Mayfield threw the ball 21 times, completing 14 passes for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Cleveland didn't have a lot of plays. I think they possessed the ball for under 20 minutes. What they had were a lot of explosive plays. 99-yard Denzel Ward pick six, 60-yard touchdown pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones, 70-yard Nick Chubb touchdown run. 4 teams in NFL history have recorded a touchdown pass, rushing touchdown, and defensive touchdown, each of at least 60 yards in a single game. The last team to do it was the San Diego Chargers in 1967. When you have to go back to the AFL, that's pretty impressive. I will say this. I mean, they won 41-16. The automatic ringtone has been, they're so much better without Odell. I said this before. I don't see it that way. I think the Browns were always going to be better without Odell because Kevin Stefanski is like Gary Kubiak or Kyle Shanahan. He wants a highly schemed offense. He wants his playbook to rule, not his players. Beckham is a receiver for better or worse, and wherever he goes, they're going to have to understand about it. He lives outside that. He lives outside your playbook. He's going to do what he's going to do, and you have to kind of bend your playbook to that. And Stefanski was never going to do that because that's just not how he sees football. That was never going to work. So I don't think Baker was better without Odell. I think they just got the distraction of the bad fit out of the way. But it wasn't like, oh, we were, coming over the hill, like, with tanks and sustaining drives. It was kind of a weird game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Baker and Odell thing, a lot of people want to say, oh, it was Odell's fault. It was Stefanski's fault. It was everybody's fault in a way. I think
Baker missed so many wide open Odell things that
Yeah, but at times he wasn't going to look there. I mean, you wrote about how they used Odell as the vertical stretch threat decoy guy. Baker wasn't taking his eyes deep. Seth Galita did a video about how they also used him as the backside dig guy. What do you got a 3-by-1 concept and you're reading the front side? Baker wasn't getting his eyes to the backside dig. And then there were times when, they schemed stuff up for Odell and Baker didn't throw it. They had a 4th down slant concept against Arizona where Odell was wide open on the slant and Baker looked at it and said, this is the one time I'm going to try to go backside to the single receiver side. And he ends up, I think, taking a sack. And so there were moments when
it was against the chart. I don't remember who it was against, but when Jarvis Landry was hurt, they had Odell doing the drag stuff that Landry usually does. And Odell was wide ass open underneath. It was a 4th and 1. He got it. And Baker couldn't connect on a 3-yard drag route. So the whole thing just didn't work.
And there was a play against the Chargers where they had him on the drag and Baker threw it and Odell dropped it.
Yeah, that's the play. I think we're talking about.
And so, I mean, there's sort of blame to go all around. I think the main thing is also remember Stefanski wants to live in 12 and 13 personnel. I mean, that's where he wants to be. And so if you've got 3 receivers in Donovan Peoples-Jones and Landry and Odell, 2 or maybe one of them might not be on the field. And
Anthony Schwartz, the rookie, will go deep, but he will adhere to the scheme. He will go deep in the scheme. Odell will go deep and he'll okay. And he's a smart player. It's over here. I'm going to go over here. And Baker may or may not be on the same page with that. You know how hard option routes are to figure out. I mean,
right.
In Patriots playbooks, the quarterback in his head, he has to know, okay, I've got 4 receivers. They're all going to run option routes based on what this guy does and what that guy does. Well, the receiver has 1 set of option routes. The quarterback has 4 in that case. He's got to remember all of them. I don't really think that's who Baker is.
No, I mean, I don't think that's really what Baker is either. I mean, but I just think that, look, they want to live 12, 13 personnel, play action shot plays out of heavy stuff. And, you got Donovan Peoples-Jones who can get on the top of defense, and Schwartz can certainly do that. Then you want to hit the tight ends and rely on the run game. That's where they want to be. Odell is almost surplus at that point because where does he sort of fit in that? Clearly it never works. 6 and 13 never got on the same page. And Cleveland went out and won big as a result.
I love how people want him to go to the Seahawks. Really?
That makes absolutely no sense to me. Into
the frying pan.
Like I could see the Packers because obviously you can see him across from Devontae Adams and Rodgers.
Devontae already said, give him some of my targets. Devontae is going hard for this.
Devontae's going hard. You can look at the Chiefs and the things you could scheme up with Kelsey and Hill front side, Beckham backside, or, you could still do Y ISO stuff with Kelsey. Now you've got Tyreek Hill and Odell Beckham. Like there's so many ways you can, as Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy scheme stuff up with 87, 10, and now 13. it's just the whiteboard, put the numbers up there in formation, and the big question mark on the defensive side of the ball. What do you do? Like when I wrote that up, I highlighted a one cross play where you've got Kelsey and Hill to one side. You bring the safety down. Those two guys run crosses. You take it away. But yeah, you're hitting Cole Hardman on a vertical route. Now pitching Odell on the backside of that. You bring that safety down. You're giving Odell single coverage. Like there's lots of stuff you could do. I mean, the Saints pitch is easy. It's Odell. You're going to see 45 targets a game coming home, and you're going to get a big contract as a result. Like that's the Saints pitch. It's not, you're going to put up, you're going to win a Super Bowl or play into the playoffs. It's, you're going to see 45 targets a game.
The Saints passing game is more structured though. I would argue there's a lot of randomness in the Chiefs passing game, for better or worse. There's some randomness in the Packers passing game. Rodgers has struggled a lot deep. I think the Chiefs are the best fit.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints pitch is just, this is a launching point to a big deal for you because we're going to feed you 45 targets a game. They might be slants and tunnels and smokes and things like that, but we're going to give you a ton of opportunities. You go to Kansas City, you go to, Green Bay, you might see 4 targets a game. So come get fed targets, put up huge numbers, and get a big contract next year.
He's been tied to the Patriots in some reports. How do you see that? I don't see that at all.
I don't see it because so much of their pass game right now runs through the tight ends and the running backs.
Yeah, kind of the same diff.
Yeah.
Yep. Bills at Jets. Okay, Bills offense. First, we have an offensive line in which there is not one above average player. Not one of those 5 guys is really good. You don't have any one of those guys who consistently win one-on-one matchups, which is how defenses are playing them. The Jaguars blitzed the crap out of Josh Allen. He was pressured on 21 of his 54 dropbacks, which is another problem. When pressured, he completed 7 of 15 passes for 90 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 of the 2 picks. We just barked it up to the other Josh Allen. The way I see it, you tell me he's regressing and hurling the ball around more because there isn't a foundational passing game he can rely on. It's all very random, very much like the Chiefs right now. No run game. The Chiefs have a good offensive line. I think the Bills have a bad offensive line. The result is kind of the same. There's no commitment to the run game. And usually what we have talked about in the past, the royal we, not you and me, the correlation of the run game to play action, which I don't buy. There have been studies about that. But the correlation of not having a run game to teams rolling up and too high and just waiting you out, that's the thing. It's the thing. And Allen has 17 touchdown passes this season. 4 have come against too high. Only Mahomes and Sam Darnold have had more dropbacks against too high than Allen's 123. He's completed 70 of 120 passes for 800 yards, 528 air yards, those 4 touchdowns and 2 picks against too high. So you get a few explosive plays, someone falls down or Stephon Diggs takes a deep safety and just makes a chump of them. But there is no structure to this passing game. And schematically, I don't see the man beaters and complex route concepts I saw last season. This Josh Allen is the Josh Allen whose head was exploding midseason against more complex coverages. And I don't know that it's really a lot his fault. When your offense is broken, whether you're Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, you will eventually tap out. That's kind of where I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was having a conversation offline with Eric Turner, who runs cover1.net, Bill's site. Eric's a really smart guy. And we were talking about their RPO game, because that has been a flaw this season for them. And it's similar to some other teams like Philadelphia and to a certain extent, Kansas City, that are trying to bootstrap a run game through RPO stuff because they think, look, we can make things right post snap with the decisions that we make, either box counts, decisions we make at the mesh point, whatever. But defenses are doing a really good job this year against those teams and just generally at muddying those looks. I mean, there are a lot of plays that Eric and I talked about where defenses around the league would take that overhand defender and kind of make it a gray area for the quarterback. And then he'll make that box count decision and it ends up being wrong, because he'll decide, look, he's going to bail. I'm going to run this, and he gets himself right into the fit, and you hand it off and you run smack into a guy that's now crept down into the box right after the play begins, and you can't go anywhere. Or
that's a really good point, because the RPO is supposed to fix everything. Yeah.
Right. But defenses are doing a better job and a lot of defensive coordinators, high school, college, the guys on Twitter that we know have been yelling for a while now, like, oh, you say RPOs put people into conflict, but if you structure your defense right, there's nobody in conflict. If you structure your defense right from a fit, from a front, from a coverage standpoint, you shouldn't have somebody in conflict. You should have the ability to get, if they hand it off, get the run fit set, or if they pull and throw, you've got routes covered. So defenses are adapted to the RPO
Oh my
game.
God, the read option. Well, yeah, scrape exchange. Ugh.
Yeah. Defenses are adjusted, that they're muddy in the look pre-snap. So if you decide, look, you're going to make a box count ratio read pre-snap, they're making that harder for you. And then look, they're doing things like Kyle Kogan slitting the fits. They're doing things out of the too high looks where they can still get the run fitted, but they've got everybody covered. So if you decide, look, we've been handing it off, it's not working, we're going to pull and throw, they've got everything covered. And now you have to sort of adjust it to plan B, scramble drill mode, which is sort of what you talked about. Now, Allen, without that sort of structured passing game, is trying to create in those moments when that first read might get taken away. And I think that's what we're seeing with Buffalo right now. Defense is doing a good job against what they want to do. Now they have to adjust it. Eric basically said to me, and then he was writing about it this morning, just run the ball. Forget the RPO stuff. Like, just run the ball because you've got a bad.
It doesn't work early on.
Yeah, because the other thing is, if you've got a bad offensive line and they're worried about run versus pass and they don't want to get downhill, just run the ball. Like, just get forward momentum downhill with the run game. Maybe you get guys just get into somebody's way and you can have success running the football that way.
Although they ran the ball 9 times against the Jaguars, they were getting pushed back. They were getting
But part of it is that sort of RPO stuff where, you're not finishing a block up front as well as you might be if it's just a pure designed call. Look, it's 36 gut. Like, this is what we're running. Go get it.
Yeah, I'm sending him to Andy Reid pretty much. So are you saying that people are spinning the box count look in the same way they spin coverage?
Not so much that. It's just you've got your overhang defender, your slot, whatever, and he's in a position where he could get himself into the fit quickly, or he could just jump back out and handle that slot receiver in coverage. And so as a quarterback, if you're getting to the line of scrimmage, your typical 2x2, maybe you've got a wing tight end or maybe you don't, and you're looking at it and trying to decide, do they have the numbers up front to stop the run? And that guy sort of gaming you pre-snap. You might say, look, I'm not so sure, I'm going to pull and throw. And then that's the guy you're looking to. And suddenly that guy that you're trying to figure out, is he in the fit or not? He's now over that slant. You can't throw it. And now everybody else is sort of trying to figure it out. Or you're thinking, oh, he's going to cover that guy. He's not in the fit. I'm going to hand this off. Snap comes, you're going to hand it off. You're not reading him. You've already made the decision. He's now in the fit and you're running into a gap that's now got a defender sitting right there.
Gotcha. Good stuff. I love the conceptual back and forth.
Yeah.
The whole book about it. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Okay, smart ass. You think you got this?
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. Like defensive coordinators aren't just throwing up their hands and saying, "Look, we can't figure this stuff out." Like, they're making adjustments, and now offenses have to adjust to the defensive adjustments. I mean, that's the whole cyclical nature. I mean, the Tampa 2, right? It was created because you're running, cover 2. You've got tight ends and slot receivers that can get open in the middle of the field. So find a way to cover that. Oh, take an athletic linebacker that can match those routes vertically. So what a team's doing now, you're taking somebody, running him off, sitting, somebody down below that. I mean, that's the push and pull of this game.
Lions at Steelers. This is really only good for comedic value if you want to watch Jared Goff against this defense. So I think we'll move along. Buccaneers at Washington. This is a rematch of the 2020 wildcard game in which Washington gave the eventual Super Bowl champs everything they could handle. I think Bruce Arians and his guys were very happy to get out of there with a W, because that was Taylor Heineke completed 26 of 44 passes for 305 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Brady found that defense tough to navigate. Now, that will not be the case this time around. Washington leads the league in best play man if you can't play man. But Brady will be without Gronk, Antonio Brown, and Chris Godwin. So this could be a rock fight. Washington's offense is basically they're the Seahawks. Shot plays, heavy play action, run the ball, not really well. So this could be a weird game. If Washington loses by 3, and the Buccaneers are like, let's get out of here before the score changes. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. By the way, the Cam news is official now. The team just announced it.
Nice.
So there's that.
Excellent. Well, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I don't think he'll play against Arizona, but
No,
starting against Washington defense.
that could be fun to watch.
Yep. So yeah, Panthers at Cardinals, we've covered that. Vikings at Chargers. Vikings are 3-5. I don't really know what to say about them at this point. You mentioned the Chargers passing game. I know you did the 3 throws about Herbert. I wanted to get your take on just this is going to be a heavy Dalvin Cook game because the Chargers run defense is crap.
Yeah.
So yeah. Herbert and the Chargers passing game, great game last week. Kind of where are you? Because we mentioned it's become reductive. Where is he in that offense right now?
I mean, look, he's still running that offense well. The thing is, you look at his spray charts, you look at average depth of target, which is basically he's on the same page as like Mac Jones right now. Seth Galita said they're taking Justin Herbert and making him trying to make him Drew Brees. That's what they're trying to do with him. And I don't think that's his strength. No. I think his strength is throwing haymakers downfield. It's attacking in the vertical passing game. You know, you look at some of the stuff they did against the Browns, it was vertical stuff over the top. It was some shot plays. It was some, middle field open beater concepts. They are one of those teams that will run that hiccup concept where it's boot. And you think, oh, it's going to be your standard 3-level read off of boot with a corner route, a crosser as a middle read, a route to the flat as your shallow read. But that vertical route, instead of running to the corner, goes corner post away from the flow of the play, had to Deontay Lee. But you need a cannon for an arm to throw that. Herbert hits that. He hit it for a touchdown to Mike Williams against the Browns. He hit it for a huge play against the Eagles as well, also to Mike Williams. And so cater to that. It worked Sunday against the Eagles because, their defensive coordinator, Gannon, he's got to play everybody 7-by-1. Like all the corners are playing off coverage. You take a Darius Slay, put it up 7-by-1, you're giving up those hitches, those curls, those stops, those comebacks where, sure, Justin Herbert can hit them. And it worked on Sunday, but I do think going forward, I want to see the Chargers be more vertical in the passing game. I think it worked against the Eagles because of how they structure their defense. And again, the Eagles, can you stop running invert two? Like they had a play, and I featured it in the 3 throws where Keenan Allen runs a curl route. Herbert's on, I think, the second or third step of his drop. Allen is still in his stance. Like he hasn't come off the line yet, but he gets open for a curl route because they invert to 2 and he's just checking up in front of the safety. It's just invert 2. I don't understand it. Maybe somebody smarter than me can explain why teams want to do it. I just don't think it works. But yeah, that's kind of where I am on Herbert.
I have said on this very podcast with the call there, that was from our guy Barry Werner, because we're discussing, that's right about Ken. I've said on this very podcast that anyone running inverted cover 2 should be suspended for 5 games and possibly fired, and the whole thing should be banned. Just don't do that anymore. Well, the Eagles have their own interesting story that everyone on that team seems to be opposed to whatever Gannon does. I've rarely seen anything like this at any level of football where, they're asking Fletcher Cox, well, are you happy with this? No, we should be doing this. They're asking Javon Hargrave, do you want to blitz more? I ain't the defensive coordinator. And then they'll ask Gannon, well, Fletcher Cox said this, we should do more of this. And Gannon will say, well, yeah, it's a good idea. Maybe we should do more of that. Really? Yeah. Really? Okay. Nice segue, by the way. Next game, Eagles at Broncos. Jalen Hurts is in for a very interesting day. Broncos can be on several defensive backs, including Patrick Surtain due to injury, but they were losing DBs against the Cowboys, and Vic Fangio just, I don't care. I'm running Patriots against Rams Super Bowl bullseye kick your ass game plan on every single play. They can do that against the Eagles. They didn't blitz a lot, but they got pressure. So that Vic game plan, as I said, I don't think it's repeatable by a lot of other teams, but I think Vic is going to do more of this. And I think the Eagles are kind of the next step because he's like, well, I'm down a couple of guys, but if we could do this against the Cowboys, we sure as hell can do it against the Eagles.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to be doing it against a quarterback that's still, 2 steps forward, 2.5 steps back. Like Hurts has shown some good things each week, showed some good things, against the Chargers, but he's still bailing from clean pockets. He's still missing some throws that he might need to hit. Where I am with Hurts is basically it looks like he could be that quarterback you win games with, the next in that sort of guy that needs the scheme to be right, the schemed up quarterbacks, but I'm not too sure it becomes the guy you win games because of. You're looking at a situation where you're going to be able to get some pressure on him, get him to drop his eyes, get him to pull the football down, make him run around a little bit. He might hit you for a scramble drill play, but I think Fangio will take that because what will happen, when he pulls the football down, he might miss some opportunities. He might miss some open receivers as a result. And Fangio is going to be happy to make that trade. He's going to be happy to give him those moments because he'll know he'll miss some opportunities as a result.
One thing that Eagles defense has not had to deal with is a lot of deep passes against. And I don't know if this
Teddy's going to sling it.
What's that?
Teddy's going to sling it deep.
Oh, he will. I don't know if this is game script throughout the season, but they've only faced 19 passes of 20 or more air yards, 6 completions, 212 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Only the Bills and Chargers have allowed fewer deep completions, and that's just odd. And the Broncos, Bridgewater is tied for 5th in the league with 39 deep attempts, tied with Taylor Heineke, by the way, completing 13 of 378 for 378 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. It's not like explosive, touchdowns, but it's big plays and, getting you in a nice, better game situation so that Javonte Williams can just kick your ass. That's Broncos they're in a really interesting place. They're obviously rebuilding. They're getting draft picks for the next quarterback. I wonder if Vic will be there next year. I think he should be, but if he's not, someone's going to get, one of the better, because Brandon Staley, and Gannon is a Staley. Brandon Staley. Well, who taught Brandon Staley how to play?
Right. Yeah.
Defense. This is Vic Fangio.
Yep.
We forget these things, so we're here to remind you. Seahawks at Packers. Congratulations, Aaron Rodgers. You just got your team out of the NFC's 1 seed. Hope it was worth it. Seahawks look to be getting Russell Wilson, Chris Carson, and Dean Eskridge back, which is nice for them. Still a big bag of who knows on defense. Rodgers, as I've said, and I wrote about this a couple weeks ago, not connecting with anyone deep. We'll assume Rodgers will start. They need to. We talked about RPOs. My notes are that they need to stop getting so cute with RPOs and whatnot. Start testing defenses more downfield with layered and defined route concepts. That's Jordan Love. There's nothing about that game that tells me anything about Jordan Love as a future starting quarterback.
Right.
First NFL start, he had from Wednesday to whatever their Saturday walkthrough was to practice as the starter. Their offensive line was garbage against the Chiefs. Spagnuolo was like 0 blitz all over the place, and he just didn't care. He got the 1 touchdown where Daniel Sorensen did Sorensen things. I wanted to bring that up because people are just, demolishing Jordan Love on Twitter. What did you expect?
Yeah, I mean,
the fact that he actually played better in the second half than he did in the first.
Which I think was a good sign. And look, they had a field goal missed. They had a field goal blocked. They had a bad punt return, and they still were in it until the end. I mean, I don't think Jordan Love is atop the list of reasons that the Packers lost that game. I think there were other mistakes that happened. Did he play great? No. Did he get better in the second half? Yeah. Is that a good sign? I think so. He made some throws that were impressive in the moment. He missed some stuff. He was late with his eyes at times. And that's, I think, to be expected from a young quarterback, not a rookie quarterback, but a young quarterback making his first start on the road on a basically short week for him.
The Packers have issues.
Yeah.
On who their quarterback is. And they have issues with their quarterback. The whole thing has just become a joke. And not a very funny one. Chiefs at Raiders. Patrick Mahomes against the Packers. 20 of 37 for 166 yards. This is a Chad Pennington game. I think he had more completions behind the line of scrimmage than, 10 yards downfield. None of his 5 passing attempts of 20 or more air yards were complete. So maybe you just put the train wheels on the defense. This defense against the Raiders offense invites a shootout. Deshaun Jackson added to the mix to replace Ruggs and all that. Mahomes said this week that, the last few weeks have been big for me. I've learned that we can punt the ball and back the team up, and the defense is going to make stops. We'll see.
While that might not be true, I think that was the biggest development of the week for Kansas City is the fact that Mahomes feels that way. Because so much of what we
think that way, whether it's reality or not.
Right. Because of so much of what we've talked about on this show, so much of, the gripes about they can't figure out cover two, they need to run the football, yada, yada, yada. He was becoming Texas Tech Patrick Mahomes again and trying to throw touchdowns on every single play. And he can't do that right now. The offense wasn't executed as well at a high enough level to make that work. He needs to, understand that maybe it's not exactly technically right. Maybe the defense isn't good enough to get those stops, but he has to believe that. It's like the George Costanza line. It's not a lie if you believe it, George. It's not a lie if you believe it, Patrick.
But I think in this game, it would be easy for the Raiders to put a 40-burger up. And at that point, Mahomes is going to have to, be random and do his thing. It's weird to say this. I don't know if they're a playoff team.
Yeah, I don't know.
I really don't. I couldn't definitely say that they're a playoff team right now, which is, 2 straight Super Bowls. Stuff happens. You know who I would not want to be this week, Mark?
Who's that, Doug?
Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Rams at 49ers. How pissed off do you think the Rams are right now?
Oh, they're livid. They are not happy.
They just got boat raced by, and I know when we talked about Rams Titans last week, I said, oh, Tennessee's defense, blah, 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 whatever. And we just moved on. So Sean McVay knows how good their defense is. He knew the fact. Sean's a very smart guy. But if you're Kyle Shanahan, you've got this coming into your kitchen, and on either side of the field, you don't want it. The 49ers have faced the second fewest empty formations this season per SIS. Only the Jets have faced fewer empty attempts than the 49ers, 32. They could see 32 empty passing attempts by the end of the first half. They've been pretty good against empty, but Stafford, obviously, league high everything, just blowing it. And the interesting thing about them, I noticed this a couple weeks ago. They run empty out of reduced formations. So they compress your defense. They'll run empty with, 5 receivers inside the numbers or right on the numbers. So they compress your defense and they widen the field with their route concepts. Most of the time when you think empty, you think Cliff, you think Oregon, you think Texas Tech, and everything's, right to the sideline and all that. The Rams are so good at creating that sort of artificial extended boundary with those route concepts. Von Miller should play. I'm interested to see how this works. This season, Leonard Floyd is also playing very well. He's had 236 of his 256 pass rushing snaps on the left side. Von Miller in Denver, 159 of his 177 pass rushing snaps on the left side. Terrell Lewis, who is kind of an under-the-radar guy, played very well in college and he got hurt. I love his college tape. He's been kind of the primary right side guy. So I wonder if, and Lewis moved around a little bit in college. Von can move around. Von can play Will. They can use him as a joker, A-gap sort of sniffer dude. I wonder if you keep Lewis on the right side and Floyd on the left side and you move Miller around to sort of, because I don't know if you want to play him 60 snaps right away, but I'm really super interested to see how, not only how Miller plays in that defense, but how they deploy him.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting part because, when you start thinking about how Miller fits in there, it's moving the guys around. It's, do you go some overload looks where you've got Donald, Miller, Lloyd to one side? With Miller sort of lurking around in the B gap, Floyd on the edge, Donald as, a 3-tech or even a 1-tech. And then you just got Lewis on his side. Well, obviously you're going to fan the protection that way. You're going to slide the protection to that overload look because those are 3, incredible defensive players. you can do some creative stuff there. I mean, to quote the great Coach Vast line, yeah, if you're dropping Von Miller into coverage more than a couple of times, you're just an idiot. But you might want to do it once or twice because then you get offensive line to slide the protection that way. You drop one or two of those guys off. You bring some stuff from the other side and it can't get blocked up. There's a lot of stuff the Rams can now scheme up with those guys. And I think where Miller aligns the most, or maybe there's not a spot he aligns the most because he moves around so much, is going to be the most intriguing element of that.
The other thing you could do, you could Miller outside with Floyd as the end backers and bare fronts.
Yeah.
Inside, maybe Donald plays the other like a 3 or a 4 eye with a defined nose. It gives him so many more options. It's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
Down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Against Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan's going to hope this is a rock fight because that's the kind of fight he can win right now with his team. I don't think it's
going to be a rock fight.
I think I think the Rams will come out. Oh boy. Well, yeah, they'll run the ball like 40 times and still win.
Right.
Because as they say, everything is wrong.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, good stuff, man. As always, Cam Newton is a Panther again. Holy.
Yep.
Good gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And good luck to Cam. Glad to see him back in the league. It's where he deserves to be.
Exactly.
All right, man. Good stuff. Week 10 in bunches, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.